Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great, and appreciate you stopping by. So we're in the midst of August, everybody. It is the dog days of summer as your Miami Heat. They'll have a training camp coming up at the end of September. Finally, be knocking on the door for things. But it has been an exciting summer with plenty of players getting work, and I think the one that I'm most curious to see how he takes the experiences of Summer League and turns that into something is first-round pick, Kasparas Jakuc ionis. And if you've been noticing this week, the Ghost Man, he has been out there putting up some photos, some videos, some social media content of him getting ready for the season and getting some work in as he's getting some shots up. Put himself up doing like an off-the-backboard dunk, and I was like, huh. I was like, well, look at the Kasparas Jakuc ionis getting up and getting after it with this. I'm curious to see for him and for the team after having this summer where he got a lot of harsh criticism. I think for a pick taken as late as he was to be in a spot where people were like, yeah, he gets a D here. The pick was a D. A lot of like negative reinforcement on a guy who was taken on the bottom third of the draft. Very strange. Very, very strange. But I'm curious to see how he takes that critique, and then if he uses it, if he hears any of it. I think he probably does. Everybody that age, that young, typically hears it. But I'm curious to see how he uses that because he is going into, I think, a camp where when he was first picked, I think a lot of people are like, ooh, true point guard. This is exciting. And now I think we're at a place where definitely that the expectations have lowered a little bit on Kasparas, that we're not at the spot where, I think a ton of people think that he's going to get a bunch of playing time early on. I think this is probably a guy where we're looking at it and being like, maybe he'll get some moments here and there. Of course, injuries through a regular season will dictate that, right? But I'm saying just on paper, you're going into this thing, Davion Mitchell will either start or Norman Powell will start. And so we know one of those two is going to be the first guard coming off the bench, Powell or Davion. Pelle Larsson is probably having the best summer out of anybody. And the only person you could probably put in there is probably Davion Mitchell. So the two guys who he's got to beat out, you've seen a ton of work from them. One got a multi-year extension. The other is a second-round pick, so he knows the system. He's older. He's 24. You're 19. It's a tough ask. It's a tall task, I think, for Kasparas Jakuc ionis to expect that he's going to walk in there and take the job. Or even like last year with Kel'el Ware, which was still a job that he had to earn. At least with that, you were like, pretty obvious, dude. They need the size. He seems like the easiestly the most talented guy. Jakuc ionis does definitely feel like he's got more battles to win if he's going to go out there and make himself a part of this rotation for sure, for some significant minutes. Then on top of it, you have Jaime Jaquez. Jaime Jaquez has been around. Like, do the Heat go in a position where they're going to just throw Jaime Jaquez away, or are they going to give him his opportunity? Then you have the idea of the Terry Rozier thing, where that's at. We got even some more updates and details on that. Shout out to the Miami Herald's Anthony Chang, who gave kind of an update on the talks that were first kicked around by Jake Fisher of the Steinline Bleacher Report, where he had said that the Heat had talked to the Wizards about a Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier trade, and that he had put it under the scope of the Heat couldn't look at it as a pure upgrade for Terry Rozier. Well, Anthony adds some details on it, where it was like, no, it wasn't just that. They didn't want to attach draft capital, even though it's a smaller number, get the Heat, their books down a little bit. Are you at the point where you want to add another asset to already a sunk cost? And, I when this first came out, I was like, yeah, I kind of understand why the Heat didn't want to do that. And the other part of it is you bring in Marcus Smart to a team that we've already mentioned the names. He's an established guy. He's a veteran. He's like coming in here. How does that go? You have to have another talk with somebody or get their role straight. To a guy, the Heat have been reported in the past have respect for. So how does that go when he doesn't get a lot of minutes because you want to play other people? You've already crossed that bridge with Terry Rozier. I thought it was a couple. One, you can't sink any more assets into Terry Rozier to get rid of him. The damage is done, my friend. You're not going to go out here. You've already spent a first-round pick you should have spent, and now add a second, add 2 seconds, whatever the cost is, add a young player just to get rid of him. I don't know, man. To me, that was probably the prudent thing for the Heat to do, and that's not even to say who's better, who can help your team more. Yeah, probably Marcus Smart. His defense, what he brings to the table, is it a little redundant with what you have with Davion? Yes. So I understand the Heat not just pulling the trigger just to get the Terry Rozier headache off, because I feel like the worst of it is already there. And so that made sense to me, because we've already mentioned the things that Kasparas has to go through. Imagine if you have a guy like Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year, probably stolen from Bam. Maybe he feels a certain way about that. I don't know. But you already have been getting good summers by somebody in that mold anyway, with Davion and with Pelle, quite frankly. And if you were to really rank who's had the best summers, I think you would probably put those guys as your top dogs, at least from the windows we're getting on social media. Like Davion Mitchell, the work that he puts out there, the stuff that he's doing in Spain. He was working out with Amon Thompson, getting a lot of great stuff by this guy who, I think maybe it wasn't the biggest contract in the world, but it was I think probably a nice place. He's obviously put his stamp on how much he likes it here in Miami. And that's also knowing that this has been a bit of a tough market for guys as well. You see what's going on with the restricted free agents. And so he didn't have to go into that. The Heat, you look at what's happened with Kuminga and Josh Giddey and Cam Thomas. All of those guys are having a tough time, and Davion Mitchell's I found a place that I like, got a fair offer, take this, kick it down the road. You'll be off this contract when you're 28, and maybe a monster payday, and even bigger paydays after that. Pelle, has taken all the responsibility from the Summer League. Now he's right back at it with Eurobasket, getting work back in. You can see some of the stuff from his trainer in Sweden with what he's doing. Think back to last year when Jimmy Butler was in Sweden working out with his trainer. He's like, I can't wait to work out with Pelle Larsson. It's can't wait to work out with Pelle Larsson. So he's had a really good summer. Cannot wait to see what Nikola Jović brings to the table. Norman Powell is now working with the Jamaican national team, so he's starting to get in some big-time work. We've seen what Tyler Hero's been doing, and especially some of the work that he's been doing with Kel'el Ware. So I do think you're getting a Heat team that's coming into this summer with a lot of guys that are going to be ready and raring to go, and formulating a camp that's going to be important for this team. They've talked about the gelling that they got to do, but also you think about the competitions that are going to be there for them. And it's going to be a tough one if Kasparas wants to break through. It may be too tough, but there's going to be opportunities for him there. And certainly in the preseason, there's probably going to be a lot of minutes for him there, because there'll be scenarios where there'll be playing time where he's probably going to go out there with a bunch of the young guys, and we'll get to see what he can do. But it is good to see that he's already back after it with a very, very roller coaster ride of a summer league, where he did bounce back after a tough few games, and then got some opportunities. I think that the scoring, the offensive feel, people criticize it, but I think that usually it's the other stuff that rookies have to worry about. The defense, the decision-making. Those are things that, he showed a propensity to turn over the ball. That's been a knock on him. But, the hustle, the defensive tenacity, the unselfishness of trying to get his teammates involved, these are all things that I think come into with a good amount of maturity. And I think the offensive stuff, we know that he's got the talent there. It's just going to take a minute of getting the speed of the game down, reading the game a little bit more. So I'm excited about that. I don't think this is one of those things where, and he's taking a lot of heat, no pun intended, from the critics, the pseudo-experts, as the great Tony Fiorentino calls them. So I'm excited to see how he takes all of that and develops and uses it coming into his first NBA camp.